Falcons have been very busy today. A lot of roster moves happening. Welcome in, Falcons fans, to Falcons Today by Chat Sports. My name is Moose, your 2025 season host, here to give you all of the Falcons move that have been made, including, but not limited to, the Falcons trade that just happened. We've got some roster cuts for you, and then, of course, that 53-man roster is loading up. So I'm going to go through every single thing that has happened so far. Let's start, of course, with the most pressing, that being the trade that just went down. The Falcons are trading a 2027 conditional 7th-round pick for Michael Jerrell, offensive lineman for the Seattle Seahawks. I talked a little bit to our Seahawks guy, Mr. Will Ortner. He gave me kind of the lowdown on this dude. Believe it or not, his very first game that he played in was against the Falcons, funny enough. Here's what happened with Tom Pelissero. He was the one that broke it. He basically just kind of said everything that was going on. This is obviously because of the Kaleb McGary injury. I want to make that very, very clear. This is not because the Falcons just happen to need a little bit of extra depth. This is a specific trade to replace Kaleb McGary, who is going to miss significant time this season. Do we know how much time? Not quite, but we do know that for the start of the season and for the foreseeable future, he will not be there. Here's a Seahawks beat reporter that kind of broke down the situation as to why the Seahawks were able to part ways with Jerrell. Basically that he is a swing tackle, and they signed Josh Jones to kind of take his place. So Jerrell was fighting for that one final O-line spot. It ended up being that he missed out on it, which is why the Falcons didn't really need to give up too much to go get him. And if you're wondering how he is as a player, he's kind of like an in-between player. He can kind of do a bunch. So playing on the outside right now at that right tackle spot, because I don't think Jack Nelson is ready for it, is clearly the option or plan A. Or you could go with Elijah Wilkinson at that right tackle spot, and Jerrell could be that backup. Either way, though, I think Jerrell's going to end up starting. Considering this preseason, he was actually pretty good. 64.8 PFF grade, all-encompassing. And from everything that I have read, he's a better pass blocker than he is a run blocker, which is good because you need to protect Michael Penix Jr.'s blind side. It is a necessary move that the Falcons definitely needed to make. After Kaleb McGary went down, I went out on a video, and I said, you need to go and replace Kaleb McGary. There's got to be at least somebody that you can get in that place in order to just take up a spot, because the Falcons need to put someone in there. Elijah Wilkinson is not going to be your long-term answer if you don't have a backup for him. And Jack Nelson, like I said, is not ready. So here's what Yahoo Sports basically had to kind of surmise everything about Jerrell. A 6th-round selection last year who was older for a rookie, but he spent 6 seasons at Findlay in college, winning Great Midwest Athletic Conference Offensive Lineman of the Year in 2023. That's pretty nice praise. He had 40 collegiate starts and showed well at the Hula Bowl, leading to the Seahawks to invest in him. The Falcons saw him firsthand in his first NFL start, which came against Atlanta last year in Week 6. So this is a guy that doesn't have a ton of NFL reps underneath his belt. Last year was his first year on a squad, and it's clear that it just wasn't working out in Seattle. So like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on this guy because he's really just a kind of emergency replacement for Kaleb McGary. So with that being said, I'm going to give my final grade on it. It's a B, out of necessity. I wouldn't say it's a B because the player himself is great. It is a B out of necessity. But you let me know in the comments down below what you think about this trade. Now, coming up, I'm going to tell you all about the roster cuts that the Falcons have currently made, because there have been quite a few of them. A couple of them, believe it or not, kind of surprising. But before we get into that, I have to tell you about today's sponsor, and that, of course, is HelloFresh. You guys have heard of HelloFresh before, but not like this. Let me tell you about what they've got going on right now. They send chef-crafted recipes and fresh ingredients to your home. But this summer, they made their biggest menu upgrade yet. This is not the HelloFresh you remember. It is bigger. They've doubled their menu, and you can now choose from 100 options each week, including new seasonal dishes and recipes from around the world. Dig into bigger portions. That'll keep everybody satisfied. I love their portions. I think it's great, and it also leaves me nice and satiated after I'm done. It's also tastier. You can get steak and seafood recipes delivered every week at no extra cost. There's 3 times more seafood on the menu at no extra cost. Discover new seasonal produce each week, from snap peas to stone fruit to corn on the cob and much more. The best way to cook just got better. Go to HelloFresh.com/FalconsChat10FM to get 10 free meals plus a free item for life. How cool is that? 1 per box with active subscription. Free meals applied at discount on first box. New subscribers only, and it varies by plan. That's HelloFresh.com/FalconsChat10FM to get 10 free meals plus a free item for life. I'll have all of that in the comments and description of today's video. Let's start right here. What do we know? The Falcons at this point during this recording. So obviously, this could change as the recording goes out. But we know right now the Falcons have cut 20 players. Let's start with the first round of cuts. Not the first initial round of cuts, but just kind of throwing all these guys together. Easton Stick, which was kind of a surprise. Lenny Krieg, Simon Barrow Jr., Josh Corbin, Carlos Washington Jr., who I predicted was going to end up making RB4. I was wrong about that. And Ronnie Harrison. Out of all of these, the most surprising one is Easton Stick. Why? Because it's clear that Easton Stick did not do well enough to maintain a roster spot on the 53. He just didn't have that great of a preseason. It was very, very underwhelming, in my opinion. It wasn't awful, but it just was not nearly good enough. And I still believe at some point Kirk Cousins could garner some trade value, which means Easton Stick, if he's demoted to the practice squad, would end up being your backup. But like I said, this is a prime designation for the practice squad. So I do think that Easton Stick ends up staying with the Falcons, at least at the time of this recording, but I do also believe that he's going to end up as a practice squad member. Let's go to the roster cuts. Also, Matthew Cindric, Ben DiNucci, Elijah Dotson, who got cut earlier, Morgan Fox, and Lamar Jackson. Morgan Fox and Lamar Jackson were among those first wave of guys cut. Then, believe it or not, we had Kaleb Johnson. We had Nikola Kalanick, Nick Kubitz, and Jesse Matthews that also got cut. I'm not super surprised with the cuts that have been made so far by the Atlanta Falcons. I just want to make that clear. There's only been a handful here and there that I've been surprised about. But for the most part, this seems to be cut and dry, exactly what I thought the Falcons were going to end up doing. The final roster cuts: Ronnie Perkins, Quincy Skinner Jr., Josh Thompson, Jake Hansen, who they designated to IR. And there's a lot of people that were all on the hype train about Kobe Bryant. But with the injury that he sustained to his hamstring at joint practice against the Titans, and the fact that he got basically dunked on this last preseason game against the Cowboys, Kobe Bryant was sadly one of them to go. I do want to mention that of all the guys that were cut, one that wasn't cut and has actually made the roster, and good for him, Nathan Carter, who had by far the best preseason of any Falcons running back that there was that played. Right? Like, you can't say Bijan or Tyler Algier. But out of all the Falcons running backs that played, Nathan Carter definitely showed plenty to be on this team. I love his patience. I love his awareness. I love his discipline. And I love his burst. I think he's got a lot to offer this Falcons running back room, especially as RB3. So let me ask you this question. Do you agree with the cuts so far? Overwhelmingly, I say yes. You could twist my arm into saying they probably shouldn't have cut Easton Stick. Either way, if they end up keeping him on the practice squad, I'm not going to be too dissatisfied with it whatsoever. So far, I think the Falcons are doing the right thing, making the correct corresponding roster moves. That's going to do it for us on today's episode. A reminder to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We'll be back later today with a full 53-man roster video. And as always, be cool.